What if vampires existed? When I refer to vampire, I'm referring to the original classic vampire from books like Dracula and not the current popular vampire from films like Twilight. In this timeline, vampirism would likely be seen as a disease as it is spread from one person to another, and it would not be seen as anything supernatural or magical in this timeline. As vampirism is spread via the vampire biting into the victim's body, if vampirism existed, it would likely be seen as a blood-borne illness similar to Ebola in our timeline. The first major difference would be that because vampires cannot cross running water, ferries be the major transport across water and not bridges, as ferries can be better regulated. Also, to protect cities from vampirism, artificial canals that could be constructed around major cities to prevent vampires from crossing into those major cities. Island nations such as Japan and Britain would have strict border controls to prevent vampirism from entering their nations, similarly to how the British used to quarantine any animals going into the nation for 6 months before they entered Britain to prevent rabies from entering. The greatest difference of all, though, would be due to vampires being unable to deal with the cross. Vampires being unable to deal with the cross would prove the existence of God, and if the existence of God is proven, that would give the church much more power. As vampires in the Western sense, well, of course, there are vampires in China, but they're slightly different, do not exist outside Europe, I can't say if holding up a Star of David if you're Jewish would hold back a vampire, or a crescent if you're Muslim. So I just don't know about that question. And with the church being more powerful, it would mean that the Enlightenment would never have happened, because the whole thought process of the Enlightenment was to take God out of the equation and look in the world that way. But if God is proven, you cannot take God out of the equation. And so the Enlightenment would have never happened. Without the Enlightenment, the inventions that were in the Enlightenment, such as the steam engine and the thought processes behind the Industrial Revolution would never have happened, and so the Industrial Revolution would either have never happened or would have happened much later. Without the North having an industrial advantage over the South would likely win the American Civil War, as there would be no Industrial Revolution, and so the North would have no industrial advantage over the South. Without the Industrial Revolution, trains would not exist, and so the US would not be able to build the Transcontinental Railway, and so Washington would likely lose touch with the West Coast, and so California and the West Coast would likely split off from Washington. Also, without the Industrial Revolution, Europe would not have been able to create the medicines that protected Europeans from the African diseases, and so the Europeans would have never colonized Africa, and so Africa would likely remain tribal to this day. Without industrialization, the world wars would look less like this and more like this. Without the Industrial Revolution, and without World War I, which was the reason for why penicillin was invented, penicillin would likely never be invented, and so child mortality rates would likely continue to be high, and so the huge population upsurge of the 20th century wouldn't have happened. And so this would mean that the world's population in 2000 would be like 2 billion-ish. The possibilities are endless for what if the Industrial Revolution never happened. Just look around you. Um, think about your TV, your phone, your car. All of those came out because of the Industrial Revolution. And I was only able to cover a few of those in this video, but the possibilities are endless. Thank you for watching What If Altist. If you like this video, please comment or subscribe. What If Altist. Thank you.